This conference
Yeah.
will now be
So in
recorded.
this session, we're going to in this session we're going to learn and understand what exactly Python is. Okay. So as I've, most of you have joined, so let's just start with the session. So let's go ahead and with today's agenda. So what are we discussing today? So we shall understand what exactly Python is. Before getting into programming language, let us try to understand what exactly Python is. Why is it so popular when compared to other programming languages like C, C++, and some of the application areas where Python is used. And finally, some of the well-known industries which use Python. So I hope all of you are clear with the agenda of today's class. So let us start with what exactly Python is. Now, I request all of you to be on mute, and so that anyone of you have any doubts or anything, you can just put it up in the chat box. Okay, cool, guys. Okay. So what exactly is Python? So before even understanding what Python is, let us try to look into the history of Python. When was Python designed, and why was it not popular those days, and why is it so popular these days? So let us try to understand all of these things. So Python was initially designed by Guido van Rossum in 1991. So what happened? Why was popular? Why was Python not popular? Even though it's been almost 40 years, and why was Python not popular those days? And it's been into talk recently from last 5 to 6 years, I can say. So why is it like that? So before the language is not popular those days because it was slow when compared to other programming languages like C++, Java. When compared to those programming languages, Python was compared to be slow 40 years ago. But now, with the rise of machine learning, artificial intelligence, this language is in demand. And that's the reason all of us, let it be you, I, and any one of us, who are working, as in Java developer, anything, everybody basically wants to get into Python. Okay. So now because of, rise in machine learning and deep learning and, artificial intelligence, these are the reason that people are, shifting towards Python. Next. So what exactly is Python? And what is the necessary for us to learn Python, right? So we'll try to understand what Python is. So Python, the first point says that Python is in high level programming language. So what do I mean by high level programming language? It means that, it is human understandable. There are two types of language, right? High level programming language and low level programming language. When I say high level programming language, it is a language which is human understandable. And when I say low level programming language, it is something written in terms of zeros and ones, which is basically not it is not understandable by us or as humans. We are not able to, understand it, right? So Python is a high level programming language, unlike other programming language which are basically assembly level programming languages. Secondly, the next reason that what exactly Python is, the language is basically simple and very easy. What do I mean by simple and very easy? The syntax, I'm talking about the syntax. The syntax of Python is like so easy that people can easily start implementing it. You don't have to basically worry about the language complexity because of the easy in syntax. Most of them they go with Python. And the third point is Python is open source. What do I mean by open source? It basically means that it is free to use. The source code of Python is available basically, so you can just download it and you can freely use it. So you don't have to pay for it basically. Okay. Now, the last point says that Python is can be run on cross platform. What do I mean by that? It means that you can build and run Python on Windows, Windows system or Mac system or Linux system. Okay, so this is what exactly Python is. So moving ahead, let us try to understand why Python. There are programming languages like Java, C++, C Sharp. Why should I go with Python? What is the necessity for me to, move into Python? So these are some of the reasons. Firstly, as I told you, it is simple. What do I mean by simple? I'm talking in terms of syntax. The syntax is like so easy and so readable that anybody can, the person who is from non-technical background, or the person basically who is a Java developer, even he can easily understand Python if he's just putting a little bit of effort, and even he can get basically work in this programming language easily. Okay, so Python has an easy syntax that makes it one of the best programming language. And as a result, developer basically who are developing programs can only focus on the problem and not the language complexity. Okay, so I hope all of you are understanding. The next reason, yeah, the next reason, as I told you, Python programming, Python is free of charge. So basically, you have the source code which is available. Basically, you don't have to pay for it. So this is the second language. So second reason that why people go with Python and not any other programming language. What is the third reason? One of the most important reason why people go with Python is various libraries. So Python, in a layman's term, what is a library? A library is nothing but, in our schools and colleges, we do know, like we do have libraries, right? So what is a library? A library is nothing but a collection of books, right? So even here in Python, library is nothing but, it is a collection of functions basically. So Python has n number of libraries, n number of functions, and that's the reason people don't have to sit and write the code from scratch. Say for example, if I want to add two numbers, I already have an function called add, so I don't have to sit and write the code. It's like already these libraries are present or these functions are available, so I don't have to write the code from scratch. I can just make use of these libraries. I can just call out these libraries and I can perform a certain task. So this is one of the important reason, or one of the most valid reason why people go with Python. Okay, and again, the last reason is Python is easy to learn. Basically, it's syntax. The syntax of Python makes every programmer or the person who is new into programming, he would go with Python because of the simple syntax. So he would like be ready to go into Python programming language. So technically, everything you do with Python, you can even do it with other programming languages. But the simplicity, as I told you, the syntax has made it grow way more than other programming languages. So that's the reason people go with Python programming language these days. Okay. So I hope all of you have understood why should you even go with Python. Just as a brief, let me just brief you again. First reason is it is simple syntax. Because of its simple syntax, Python is very easy to understand. The second reason is it is free of charge. The source code is available, in free of cost, so you don't have to pay. And the third reason is the most important one, which is nothing but Python has various libraries. So these libraries have n number of functions. So say for example, if you want to add a number, or if you want to perform functions, n number of functions, you can just call these libraries, and you can just perform those functions. You don't have to sit and write the code from scratch. Okay, and the fourth reason, as I told you again, is a simple syntax. Okay, so this is the reason why people go with Python. So, you guys, hoping you guys are understanding. So let us get into the next slide. So, you guys might be thinking, okay, she's saying that Python is easier when an other compared to other programming languages. Why is it like that? Let me give you some example. Okay. So as a programmer, we always start writing our program within simple code, right? Hello world. We always try to print the first program which we work in any programming language. We would simply print in hello world program. So as you can see here in C, Java, can you see the number of lines or number of lines for this particular language? Here there are almost 4 lines of code, right? For just printing a hello world program. And when it comes to Java, again I can see that there are 4 lines or 4 to 5 lines, including these curly braces or all of these. So basically there are at least 4 to 5 lines of code. But when it comes to Python, it's the syntax, as I told you, it's very simple. You have to just write print and give your hello world, and this is how you can write your hello world program. So syntactically, this is why people go with Python. 5 to 6 lines of code, you can just finish it in one line. So this is one of the reasons why people usually go with Python. The second reason, the second reason is Python is dynamically typed. What do I mean by dynamically typed? First of all, there are two types. One is statically typed and one is dynamically. So let us try to understand the difference between statically and dynamically. So when it comes to other programming languages like C, C++, Java, can you see here something? This is something, this is your variable. X is your variable, right? X is your variable. And what am I doing in this line number 3? I'm saying X is equal to 10, right? So here I'm assigning value 10 to my variable called X, right? So before assigning this value to our variable, what I have to do? I have to basically tell my data type of X. I have to first initialize my data type. I have to say, what, X is an integer. Here, Y is in character. So first I have to define the data type of my variables, and then I can do the assignment. Then I can assign the values to my variables. But when it comes to Python programming language, you don't have to basically, define your data type, right? You can see here, right? Here I'm saying int X, right? Here I don't have to do that. Here I can just give X is equal to 10. Internally, my Python programming language or internally my Python interpreter will understand that, okay, X is nothing but 10. So it is an integer. Okay, so this is why people usually go with Python, because your number of lines of code would be reduced. Say for example, you have 10 variables that you have to assign. So first you have to assign, int X, int Y, int Z, int A, int B, and then you have to give the values. X is equal to 10, Y is equal to 20, Z is equal to 30. But when it comes to Python, you don't have to basically give the data type. Just say X is equal to 10. Your Python interpreter would understand this. X is nothing but an integer. Here X, I'm defining X is equal to hello world, and my Python would internally understand that X is an integer. Okay, next. Now moving ahead, let us look at some of the application domain of Python. Where is Python used, and what are the domains where Python can be used? Okay, so let us look into that. The first one, web and internet development. So Python offers many choices for web development, or for web frame. So the frameworks such as Django, Flask. So these are some of the frameworks. So with these frameworks, you can go with Python. So Python plus these frameworks, you can build a web. So web development can be done easily using these frameworks. Okay, so Python offers many choices for web development. Frameworks such as Django, Flask, these are used for web development. Okay, so moving on here, scientific and numeric. So what do I mean by this? So Python is widely used in scientific and numeric computation. The libraries such as pandas, scipy, these are used for computation. As I told you, right, just 2 slides, 2 slides, I told you in the previous slide, I guess, yeah, that, Python has n number of libraries, right? So these are the libraries, Django, Flask, these are the frameworks, basically, I can say, Django, Flask, these are the frameworks. When it comes to libraries, scipy, pandas, and there are n number of, libraries like matplotlib, and so on. So these scipy and pandas are libraries that are used for scientific and numeric calculations. When it comes to game development, Python also is used in development of interactive games. Like, these days games are so popular, right? Like 3D games, we have those kind of games, right? So what happens here, a library called pygame. Okay, and it's not only this library, we have n number of libraries. So one among those is pygame. Here pygame is used to develop game. Okay, so these are some of the web domains I can talk about. First one is web development. Second one is in scientific and numeric, operations. And there we make use of libraries such as sci-fi, pandas. When it comes to game development, we make use of libraries such as pygame, and there are a number of other libraries. When it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence, this is, we know that these days, these topics are like bomb, right? These are the most promising careers for our future, right? For the future. So one, say for example, you want to create an algorithm where your machine can learn, itself. So how can we do that? We can do that by using Python programming language. So using Python and machine learning, you can build algorithms so that your work can be done automatically. So what do I mean by that? Say for example, you're working in an organization. You're working in an organization, and you have to do constantly. You have to do a repetitive task. Like you have to create a folder. You have to copy a folder, rename a folder, upload them to server, and every day you have to do that boring task. Create a folder, rename a folder, upload a folder to a server, and copy a folder. So what I can do is I can write a script. So I can write a Python script and I can do this work automatically. So I can automate all those work. So next time when I come, if I run that script, what will happen? Because of that script, automatically all these tasks could be done, like copying the file, renaming the file, uploading them to server. All this work would be done automatically by running that script. Okay, so these are some of the application domain of Python. Next, one of the most important thing which I want to discuss with you guys is which are the industries which are making use of Python. We must know this, right? Which are the industries that are using Python, so that even we could know and understand where Python exactly is used. So let us talk about Google. So Google is the most well-known tech giant, right? So how does this use Python? So Google uses Python to provide better search result to its user. What do I mean by that? Say for example, if you want to find something about Python, so what do? You go to Google, you start typing, about Python programming language, right? So what happens? This Google would provide us set of, I can say set of information, right? It will provide a set of information, right? So in this Google, what happens is Google people, people who are working in Google, what do? They are using Python to basically, improve their search results, so that whenever the user is asking for some certain information, the Google can provide us a proper information, a proper content. Okay, so this is how Google uses Python. When it comes to Dropbox, how is Google used here? First of all, what is a Dropbox? Let us try to understand what is a Dropbox. So Dropbox is a cloud platform that is used to save the data online. So basically, if I want to save data online, what I can do is I can use Dropbox. So I can save all our data, all my data basically in online. I can save all my data online. So this is why Dropbox is used. Now, how is Python used here? How is Dropbox using Python? So what Dropbox is doing it is, basically the people who are working under Dropbox, what they do is the client and server application. They are basically coded in Python programming language. So this is how Dropbox use Python. Okay. When it comes to Netflix, okay, Netflix is something that all of us use, right? So when it comes to Netflix and YouTube, how Python is used here? So Netflix uses machine learning with Python for giving recommendations to user. What do I mean by this? Say for example, you're watching a movie in Netflix, and say for example, you're going with watching action movies, I can say. So what happens when you're watching an action movies? Uh, you know, Netflix would provide you recommendations, right? Based on your watched history, it'll provide you some recommendations, and the recommendations would be based on your previous history, whatever you have watched. Say for example, if you're watching a action movie, then all the recommendations would be based on the action movies, right? So this is how Netflix and YouTube use Python programming language. When it comes to NASA, right, National Security Agency, these use Python for cyber security analysis. So basically, all the information, we know that the information that these people, these organizations have, or these people use, they are very, sensitive informations, right? So what they do here is, for security analysis purpose, these people use Python programming language. So these are some of the industries that make use of Python programming language. Okay. Now, let us try to see the growth of Python programming language from the year of 2012 to 18. Okay. Like, as I told you, Python, even though it was created 40 years ago, it was not that, popular, I can say. It was not that popular because, it was kind of slow when compared to other programming languages. But from the year of 2012 to 18, you've seen a steady growth, right? Can you see this graph? In this graph, you can see that, for C++, PHP, the growth is like, okay, almost, there's no steady growth basically. The growth is just up and down, it's not that, we can't see such a, a large difference. But when you can go with Python, you can see that there's a steady growth. So year by year, there's a growth, right? Positive growth. So this is what, why people are basically going with Python. And you might be thinking, why is there a steady growth in Python and why not other programming languages? Because, as I told you, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and there are something such as something called like, self-driving car, and automations, wherein your machine would be doing your task automatically. So in all, in all those stuffs, right, we'll be using Python programming language. And that's the reason, there's a steady growth in Python programming language. Okay. Now, okay, installation again, for today's demo class, I'll not be saying you about this installation part. So let us get into the programming part of, let us see some of the programming codes, how Python works and how is it even useful. Okay. So I'll be using an interface. So I'll be using an interface called Anaconda. So what is this? So Anaconda is a free and open source distribution and for Python programming language. So Anaconda comes with, many tools. Say, for example, Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, Spider. So you can use any one of these to work with Python. So I would be basically using Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab. Both are similar. Okay. So how do I go with, how do I basically start my programming with? You have to download this Anaconda Navigator. And in the next class, upcoming class, I'll be talking about how to, download these. Just click on launch. Okay. Once you click on launch, you would be basically, okay, here you'll be getting the Anaconda interface or the Jupyter Notebook interface. Okay. And again, see, there are n number of interfaces which you can use, like PyCharm, or, you can even go with Jupyter Notebooks, Jupyter Lab. But I prefer going with, Anaconda, because this is really easy. Actually, it's really easy. So people can easily, people especially who are learning programming languages, who are new to programming language or Python, they can, easily work with Jupyter Notebook. So I prefer going with Jupyter Notebook. Okay. So it'll just take a while and we can just start. Okay, let me discuss about, what are the jobs that are, that you would get into if you're learning Python. Okay. So just give me a second. Yeah. So, if you're learning Python, you can get into web development, or, software engineering, DevOps engineering, machine learning engineering, data scientist, data analysis. So these are some of the, field that you can get into if you're learning Python. Okay. Uh, yes, guys. So it'll just take a minute and we can start with our programming, how it works. Do you guys have any doubts or anything that you want to ask me about, the career options or something like that? You can just ask me now, or in these slides, if you have any doubts that, you guys are not clear with the application domain, where Python is used in. If you have any doubts, you can just let me know. Yeah, that's okay. You guys can just, put up in the chat box if you don't like, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask me questions. Okay, so this is an Jupyter interface. So how do we basically, once you're into this interface, right, how do I create a new file? So let us try to understand how do I create a new file. So what you have to do is just go to Files, New, and you can see an option called Notebook, right? Just click on that. And it will ask you for kernel. Now, what is a kernel? A kernel can have n number of options. Can you see here? Python 3. And there's another kernel called test n. So I'll go with Python 3. Why Python 3? Because I am going to work with Python 3. Okay, so I'm just going to select Python 3. And this is how I create a new notebook. So once you've created a new notebook, how do I rename my new notebook? How do I rename it? So what I can do is, yeah. So just click on this and you'll get an option called rename. So I can rename my notebook. So say for example, I can say day one and rename it. And you can see that this is how I rename my Python notebook. So before getting started with the actual programming, let me tell you something about some of the shortcuts that you can work with. Say for example, you want to add a new cell. Okay, each of these boxes are called cell. Okay, so remember this is a Jupyter interface, and each of these boxes inside this notebook is called an cell. Okay, so say for example, I have this first cell and I have typed something, okay, in this first cell, and I want to get an second cell, or I want to, go to the next line. So how do I do it? Can you see an option called plus here? Just click on that. If you click on that, you'll go to the next line, or there's an extra cell that has been added to your notebook. Okay, so again, as a revision, or how do you create a file? How do you create a notebook? Basically, just go on File, New, and Notebook. So once you're done with that, it'll ask you for an option called kernel. So you'll be choosing Python 3. Once you're done with that, you can rename your notebook. How can you rename your notebook? Just click on just give a right click, and you have option called rename. Click on that, and you can rename your notebook. Okay, and each in this notebook, these are called cell. So how do I add a new cell? Just click on plus notebook. Okay, how do I remove a cell? Say for example, I don't want this first cell. I want to basically remove this cell. So what I can do is, can you see an option here? Cut option, right? Just click on that. That's how basically you remove a cell. Okay, now you have another option here, right? A play button. What is this for? This is for running a current cell. See, for example, I'm writing a code here, and if I want to execute that code, so what I can do, I can just click on this play button. Okay, and again, there's a shortcut for this play button. Say, for example, you don't want to go with these icons. You don't want to go with these icons. What you can do is, for executing your code, you can just click on Shift and Enter. So once you say Shift and Enter, you would automatically go to the next line, and the current line would be executed. So these are the shortcuts. Okay, now let us try to go with the programming. So before even getting into the main concepts like functions and other stuffs, let me talk about print statement. So how do you print a statement? Say for example, I have a line called, or I have a sentence called hello world, right? So how do I print the statement? So what I can do is I can just say print, okay, enclose it with parenthesis, opening and closing parenthesis, And what I can do is I can give double quotes or single quotes, and this is how my print statement would work. So I have to just give my print statement followed by open and close parenthesis with either single quotes or double quotes. So this is how my print statement would work. Again, how do I run this line code? How do I run this cell or this particular code? Either I can just click on this run option, or either I can just say shift and enter. So once I say shift and enter, right, this current line would be executed. So this is how a simple print statement works in Python. It's very simple. Like you have to just say print statement followed by your sentence or value, whichever you want to print. Okay. Now you guys might be thinking, can I, without print statement, can I basically print my hello world? Yes, it is possible. What I can say, I can just say hello world. So if I say this, yeah, I can just say this in quotes. Okay. Always remember in Python, whenever you're going with strings, right? Whenever you're giving a string or a character or a word, always try to give it in double quotes or single quotes. Only then it is going to work. Okay, only then it is going to work. Now, printing an a sentence or a string or an alphabet can be done two ways. Either using print statement, or either I can just directly give a sentence in double or single quotes. Okay. Now, why should I always, why am I saying that this is not a right way of, printing a statement? And why is this a right way of printing a statement? There's a difference. And I'll try to show you the difference. Say, for example, I have two lines of code, or two sentence basically. So the first sentence is hello world. And the second sentence is welcome. Okay. So what happens here when I try to execute this set of code? Can you see that only the last line, which is welcome, only this has been printed, right? What happens to this sentence? Why am I not able to print this first sentence? The reason is Python interpreter, Python interpreter basically runs sequentially. So it'll always start running or reading your code from left to right. So first time when my Python interpreter runs this code, what will it see? It'll see that, okay, the first sentence is hello world. And once it goes to the next line, what will it do? It will see this line, and what happens, the first line, which is the hello world, would be overwritten or overridden by this statement called welcome. And that's the reason when I try to, print my statement, I can see that only welcome is being printed. So what happens is simple. Python interface runs sequentially. So it starts scanning your statement from left to right. So it will finish reading this line. Fine. Then when it goes to the next line, what will it do? What will it do? Basically, it will overwrite. So this welcome would be overwritten by, basically this hello world would be overwritten by welcome. And that's how when I try to print my statements, I can see that I'm only getting welcome. So how can I overcome this? How can I overcome this disadvantage? Right? I can overcome this by giving a print statement. So I can just say print, okay, and I can just say hello world. In the next statement, next line, I can just say print, and I can say welcome. So when I write print statements, what happens is now let me try to run my code again. I can run my code either by clicking on this play button, or there's a shortcut called shift enter. So when I do that, I can see that both of my lines have been printed, right? So this is the reason people go with print statement rather than just going with these, normal or a direct way of printing. So always it's a better way of, using print statements. Okay. So this is one of the reason why people go with print statements and not with the direct way of printing a sentence. And again, you can see there's a difference when, when I'm not giving a print statement, the output would always be in the form of string. So always I'll be getting these, single quotes. Okay. So that's why people don't go with this convention, because, it's giving you an unnecessary output, right? I know that my output should be only hello world. It shouldn't be these, quotes. So I don't have to go with these. Rather, I can just go with print statement, which would give me the right output, whichever I want, or the required output. Okay, so next let us go into something called comment. So what is this comment lines? So let us talk about comment lines. Unlike other programming languages like Java, C++, even there we do have comment lines, right? In Java, your comment lines would be slash and star, right? It'll be slash and star, right? Yeah, slash and star. So even here in Python programming languages, we do have comment lines. So how do we write those? We write those using hash. Now, what are these comment lines? You might be thinking, why should I even go with these comment lines? So sometimes what happens, you're writing a set of function and you're writing a huge function that performs a set of task. Say for example, the function would be 20 to 30 lines of code, and you're writing that program which is doing a set of action, or which is performing a set of task. So what happens is, you've been okay writing that program, and if you want to basically define that program, if you want to define what your program does line by line, that's where you can go with hash comment. Say for example, I have this program, right? What is this program doing? It's printing me these two sentences. So what I can do here is, just for my reference, or after few days, say for example, I'm coming after after 1 month, I'm again coming to this notebook and I'm trying to see my program. There is a possibility that, right, I might forget what are these lines used for. That's where comment line comes in picture. So what does this comment line do? This comment line basically will help us, or help the user to write notes basically, or define your function. Say for example, this print statement. So what does this do? Print statement prints the statement or the sentence, hello world. So this is how I basically go with writing a comment line. So I can comment any line. Basically, if I have 20 lines of code, I can just write this comment option and I can write my set of notes. So that, even if I come after a while or after a year, still if I look into my program, I'll be able to understand what is this particular line, does. What does this particular line do? And again, when you're running this set of code, right? When you're running this set of code, you can see that this comment line would not be affected. There's no any effect of these comment line. So these are something like invisible for our interface. Whenever Python interface tries to run a program, whenever it encounters a hash symbol, it'll understand that this is just a notes, or just a user defined sentence. So it'll basically not work with these. It will just go to the next line and it will perform the further actions. So this is why we use comment line in Python programming language. Okay. Now let us try to understand what exactly are variables. Now there's one more plus point, in going with Python Jupyter Notebook. As I told you, right, there are n number of interfaces such as PyCharm and Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab, Spider. Why do I have to go with Jupyter Notebook and Jupyter Lab? Because there are the plus point is, I can write notes basically. I can give headings. I can give I can write a brief description of notes. I can do that here. Say for example, I want these variables as an heading. So how do I do it? Very simple. I can just write variable and just click on Shift and M. So if I say Shift and M, you can see that there's a change in color, right? There's a change in color. How is this? What's happening here? Internally, what's happening? Can you see something here up? There's a drop down, right? And it has three options: code, markdown, and raw. So initially, when I'm creating a cell, right, it'll be in the form of code. So what does this code mean? Code is nothing but I can write set of codes and I can start running those codes. Okay, but now I want this variable line or variable cell to be an heading. So what I can do is just write, a hash symbol followed by your sentence, whatever your sentence you want to, keep it as a heading. Here I want a heading as variable. So I'm just going to write an hash space variable. And what I can do is I can just say shift and M. When I say shift and M, can you see this here up in the drop down? This cell is currently in as in markdown, right? Before it was code, right? So when it is in a code line, what do I mean? I can write a set of code here and I can work with those codes. So, but when I make this cell as in markdown, there's a change in color, right? When I just say enter, right? When I just say shift and enter, can you see this? The sentence or the variable whichever I have given, it's turned into an heading, right? So this is how you basically write headings in Python or in a Jupyter notebook. It's very simple. What you can do is currently your cell is in code, right? It's in code, right? So what you can do is just say escape and M. When you say escape and M, this will change into an markdown. Once this is in markdown, you can just say hash and you can give variables. Okay, you can just give variables. And if you just say shift and enter, this is how you can basically, write headings in your Jupyter notebook. Okay, again, I don't want this current line. How can I cut it? Simple. There's a cut option or, icon here above. Just click on that. And that's how my current cell would be deleted. Okay, so these are some of the shortcuts that you guys have to remember. Okay, now let us try to understand what is a variable in Python. What is a variable and what are the uses of variables? So variable in Python, a variable, again, see, this is the plus point in Jupyter Notebook. You can even write simultaneously. I can even write notes. So I can just say variables. So variable is a container that is used to store values. Store values. So what do I mean by these? What do I mean by this definition? Variable is in container and it is used to store values. So let me show an example. Say for example, just imagine A is my variable and I'm assigning it to 10. So here A would be my variable, 10 would be my value. Okay, so variable is a container that is used to store values. So what am I doing here? Very simple. I'm having a variable called A and I'm telling, what, A is my container and this container would store a value called 10. So internally what happens? Internally what happens when I'm doing this? Internally when I'm running this set of line, right? There's an your computer has a memory, right? We know that. So what happens is when I say A is equal to 10, a small memory space would be allocated for my A, which will have a value called 10. So each time you create a variable, there's an memory allocated for that variable. So this is why I'm saying, my variable is a container. Why? Because my variable A is allocating a space for its value, right? So this is why, as the definition says, variable is a container that is used to store values. So similarly here, A is my variable that is used to store the value called 10. Okay, so let me freeze this. Okay, so this is nothing but variable. Again, before even getting into, there are actually some of the rules, naming rules, or I can say conventional rules, ways that you have to name a variable. So I'll be teaching that in some in a bit while. Before that, let us try to understand some of the operations of Python. So as I told you about overriding. So what is this overriding? Very simple. Overriding. What is this overriding? What do I mean by this? Say for example, I have a variable called message. Okay, my name of the variable is message is equal to, and I'm giving either, again, remember, strings in Python can be given in two ways. Either I can give it using single quotes or either I can give it using double quotes. So I'm just saying, okay, so there's a message is my variable, which is holding a value called Puna. Now, when I run this set of code, I know that there will be a memory allocation, right? There will be a memory created with the value Puna. Okay. So now what happens is here is what why am I talking about overriding? What is what does this mean basically? So just imagine here my message is equal to Poonam, right? How do I print this variable? Very simple. Then just says print, okay, print message. What means here is, as I told you, now I'm going to run this set of code in the memory location. In the memory location, there would be a space allocated for message. So just imagine this is a space which is allocated for message. Okay, message. And again, the value, what is the value for this variable? The value is Poonam, right? So what will it do? Inside this box, it will store the value called Poonam. Okay, value called Poonam. How do I print this value? Very simple. You can just say print message. So if I say print message, what will happen? My Python interpreter, as I told you, my Python interpreter always would be, scanning the lines from left to right. So it'll see this print statement. Okay, it'll understand that I have to print something. What is that I have to print? It'll go inside these parentheses and it'll see, okay, I have to print this message. So what will it do? It'll go to the memory location and it'll point. Okay, when I say this print statement, what will it do? It will look for this message variable. So it will go to this memory location and it will see this memory, this variable and fetch the content inside these variable. And the content inside this variable is Poonam, right? So that's what it is going to do here. So what happens? The print statement will fetch the value which is present in this variable. And when I run this code, I can see that, see, that would be Poonam. Okay, the output would be Poonam. So this is what my Python does. Very simple. Variables are given to assign values. As I told you again, variable is a container which is used to store value. And the value can be anything. You might be thinking, okay, the value, you're just giving a string. No, it can be anything. And also the string, as I told you, right? Strings can be written either in single quotes or double quotes. So in single quote also, if I write it, right, it'll work. So when I run this set of code, you can see that the message has been printed. Now, what is overriding? I'm saying, you know what? Message is equal to Poonam. Again, using that same variable, I'm saying, you know what? Message is equal to 10. So what happens is here, as I know, whenever I'll run this set of line or this set of code, there's a memory location created for this variable called message and the value Poonam, right? And I'm trying to print it, fine, it'll work. But again, when I say message is equal to 10, what happens? My Python would start reading this line, okay, sequentially from left to right, and it sees that, okay, there's a variable already present with the same name. So what it'll do is, internally, it'll go here, and for this variable, same variable, it'll overwrite. This Poonam would be cancelled or overwritten by this alphabet called this number called 10. So this will be array and the memory location will be overridden by value called 10. So now my message variable will be holding a value called 10 and not Pune. Okay. So let's try to run this and see what is the output. So my message is equal to 10. I'm going to run this output. Now how do I print it? Very simple. Print statement. So print followed by my variable name. My variable name is message. So when I try to run this, I can see that my value is being overwritten by 10. So always remember, this is what happens in Python. Whenever giving your variable names, be careful. Don't always don't give same names. See here, my variable name is message. Don't again give message. What will happen if you do this? It will override. Overriding will be compulsory. Okay, it will be always done whenever you're giving same variable names. Again, if I give, message is equal to 30, what happens is my message is equal to 30, 10 would be overwritten by message is equal to 30. So next time when I try to print message, my output would be 30. Okay, so this is how my variables work in Python programming language. Okay, now I have a task for you guys. Let us make this class as an interactive class. It should not be like, that only I am telling and, let us make it interactive. Say, for example, I have a variable called a, and a is equal to this. Okay, and I have another, again, I'm saying a is equal to 100. A is equal to, now when I try to print a, what do you guys think? What be the, output? Will be the output? What do you guys think? What will, a carry? Will a carry this, or will a have this value, or will a have this value? What do you guys think? It's just a small task, or you participate, either you can unmute yourself.
Hello. The A value is
Yes, yes.
hello.
Yes. So what happens? Simple. It's very simple. Python runs sequentially. So first it'll allocate a is equal to world. Then when it comes to the next line, it'll say that, okay, there's the same variable with 100. So it'll override this world with 100. And again, when it runs the third line of code, it'll see that a is nothing but 2. So what will it do? It'll override. So the latest value of a would be printed. That is nothing but hello. And this is how Python basically works. Okay, it's simple, right? It's not that difficult. As I told you, the syntax of Python is very simple. This is what I was talking about. The syntax is really simple, right? If you want to, write a Python hello world program, you don't have to write something like, you don't have to include something. You don't have to do it like hash include stdio.h, all those things. Just write a print statement. Whatever you write inside the print statement would be printed out. Yeah? Okay. Now, let us see how Python works. Python for mathematical operations. So let us see how, how Python works with operations, how Python can add numbers. It's very simple. First thing you can do is, say, for example, I have a variable called a and it is holding a value called 1. I have another variable which is having a value 2. So how can I add these two variables? Very simple. I can assign c is equal to a plus b. So what will this do? A is nothing but 1, B is nothing but 2, and my C would be holding the sum of two numbers, the sum of A and B. So when I try to print C, I can see that it will give me the output called 3. Okay, simple. You can either do the this way. There's another way you can work with. You can just say 1 plus 2. So when you say 1 plus 2, and when you run this set of code, it will give you an output called 3. So either you can go with this way or either you can go with this way. But the difference is, again, as I told you, variables. So what happens, these variables, when I assign the values to these variables, right? They'll be in a memory location, these variables will be assigned. So further, after 20 lines of code also, if I call A, right? A would be holding this value called 1. C would be holding value called 3. So when you want function or when you want to work with something that is permanent, so here a is equal to 1, it will be permanent, right? So in further programs, when I call a, right, a would always be 1. So when you want to store something, that's where you go with variables. Because when I work with variables, I know variables are containers that I use to store values. And a memory location would be created whenever I'm creating a variables. But when I do it in a normal way, right, 1 plus 2, even though it would give me an output, but we are not storing anything here, right? Are we storing the 1 plus 2 in any variable? No, we are not doing that, right? We are not storing anything. So this is like an temporary, I can say. Temporarily, if you want to add two numbers, you can go with this method. Okay. And if you want to permanently, keep your variables assigned, or if you want this operation to be permanent so that you can use this C again and again, you can go with variables. So if you go with variables, what happens is, you're assigning location, memory location. So what happens here is, internally, when I'm saying A is equal to 1, so there's an space for A allocated with the value 1. There's an another space for B allocated with the value 2. And there's another space allocated for C, which will have an value of A plus B, which is nothing but 1 plus 2, 3. So this is what internally my Python program does when I'm working with variables. But here, when I'm saying when I'm saying 1 plus 2, there's no memory allocation. There's no, separately, I'm not allocating any memory here. I'm just saying temporarily, just give me 1 plus 2. That's it. I'm not, basically, I'm not creating any memory space here for this. Yeah. So this is how basically Python works. And again, you can do n number of, mathematical operations like addition, subtraction, all those kind of things you can do with Python. The next thing which we would talk about is type of a variable. As I told you, remember when I was talking about slides, when I was, going through slides, I had an example called A is equal to 10 and B is equal to, okay. So let us just imagine there are two variables, variable A and variable B. Variable A is holding a value 10 and my variable is holding a string called hello. Now, the question is, we as a human, we know that 10 is an integer and hello is a string. We as a human, we know this, right? But when it comes to Python or the Python interpreter, how will it understand? In other programming languages, we always do like this, int a, and then we say a is equal to 10. And we say string b. We always do it like this, right? And b is equal to, in other programming languages, we do it like this, right? So what will happen here when we are working with other programming languages, we explicitly say that, what, your variable a is an integer type, your variable b is in string type. So the other interpreter would not be confused. It will directly work, right? But when it comes to Python, how does Python understand? We never give it like this, right? Explicitly, we never say that, what, hey, what, A, you're an integer, B, you're a string. We never do that. So but still, how does the, interpreter understand this? So what the interpreter does is, it says A is equal to, I know that Python interpreter works sequentially from left to right. So what it sees A is equal to, and whenever it sees a number, right, it'll understand that, 10 is a number. And for user purpose, again, see, I want to cross verify. Is my, A taking, is my variable A, which is 10, is it a number or a string? I want to cross verify. Is my, Python taking this value 10 in the right way or, okay? So what I can do is, there's an function called type. There's a function called type. So what is this type function? This type function would give us the type of our variable. So when I say type of A, so what will it do? If I run this set code, it will say that, what, your Python, don't worry, your Python interpreter is, going in a right track. It is treating this A as an integer. Similarly, let us just imagine I have a value called B and my B is equal to 100.90. We know that this is in float, right? Because it is in point. It's in point, and we know that. We as a human being, we know that this is an float number, right? But is when I once I run this code, I'm worried, whether my Python interpreter is treating this 100.90 as in float, or is it treating it as an integer? So how can I cross verify? I can just say type of, okay, variable b. So I can just pass b variable. When I run this set of code, I can say that, okay, my Python interpreter internally, it is, treating all my values in a right way. So if I'm giving a float, it is telling me, yes, it is a float number. If I'm giving an integer, it's understanding, okay, the value is in the form of int. So remember, this type is a very important function which would tell you the type of your variable. So if you want to check your type of this variable or any variable, not only here, even when we scroll here up, I want to check the type for this variable. So when I say type of my variable name, what is my variable name? My variable name is message, right? So when I say type of message, when I try to print this, see, it will say, you know what, your message is an integer type. Okay, so this is what the type function works. Again, remember, type is a function. Okay, type is a function which tell us the, okay, again, see, this is a plus point, what I was talking about. See, say for example, I'm coming after, after few days, if I'm going through these notebooks and I forgot what is the function that this type does. So what I can do, I can just write my notes in the, or I can just comment and write, type is a, type is a function, type is a function used to check data type, check the data type. So this is how I can work with both writing a program and defining a program, or what a program does. I can work with both simultaneously. So when I run this set of code, see that it's in float. So that is how my type would work. Yeah? Now in Python, you can also do multiple variable can be declared. So multiple variable can be declared. What do I mean by multiple variable? Very simple. I can say a comma b comma c is equal to 10 comma 20 comma 30, or 10 comma 20 comma 40, anything. So what happens here, in one simple line, I can assign n number of values, I can assign n number of variables. So here there are three variables and I'm assigning these three variables to 10, 20 and 40. So what internally, what my Python would do, Python interpreter would start reading your program from here, and whenever it encounters the first value, what will it do? By default, the first value would be a. So 10 would be a, 20 would be b, and 40 would be assigned to c. So when I run the set of code and I'm trying to print, you know what, print me a. So what will it give me? It'll give me, yes, a is nothing but 10. When I'm saying print of b, it'll give me that b is 20. When I say print of c, it'll say that c is basically 40. Okay, so this is how you can do people will can be declared to a at a single time, basically in the same time. Yeah. Now let us talk about keywords. Okay, this is the last topic, and after that we can just wind up our demo session. So let us talk about keywords. What is a keyword? Keywords we do have in other programming languages also, right? Like C, C++, Java. So what are keywords? Keywords are reserved words Python. So key are reserved words in Python. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by these? In Python, there are set of keywords. Say, for example, when I say true, when I say false, when I say if else. Can you see something? There's color. There's a change in color. Can you see all of these are green in color? Even the sprint statement, it's green in color, right? So all these are keywords. So what are keywords basically? Keywords are reserved words in Python. So all these keywords have some predefined meaning. When it comes to false, false has a predefined meaning. When it comes to, true, it then predefined meaning. When I say if else, this also has a predefined meaning. Okay, but when I write some other variable, say when I say Poonam, can you see it's not in a plain black, right? Plain black in color. When I say a variable A, when I say a variable Z, all are in plain black color. Why? Because these are not predefined, right? These are not predefined. But when it comes to keywords, these are basically predefined. These have some special meaning. And we'll try to understand all these keywords. Actually, in Python, there are 33 keywords. There are 33 keywords that are present in Python. And we'll start, slowly start looking all into all of these keywords once we start our sessions. So once, we'll look into all the 33 keywords. But just remember, keywords are reserve words. They have some predefined meaning. When it comes to true, when it comes to false, these have some predefined meaning. When it comes to print, we know that print is for printing a statement. When it comes to if else, what does this if else do? All of these are basically predefined. These have some functions or set of codes already written for performing a set of tasks. So variables, we were talking about when I'm talking about variables, I was telling you guys something about naming rules and conventions, right? So let us try to see that what are the naming rules and conventions. So there are certain naming rules. Okay, again, I have this in the form of notes or heading. What I can do is I can just say naming conventions or rules. So when I do the escape and M, I know that this would change into a markdown. Just give shift and enter. This particular set of lines would be changed in heading. So what are the rules that you have to follow? The rules that you have to follow while giving a variable. See, you cannot simply give a variable and say, variable is equal to. There are some rules that you have to follow basically. So what are the rules? First rule is nothing. Variable can only contain variable can only contain letter, underscore, and number. So this is the first rule. Variables can only contain these three things. What are those things? Let, underscore, and numbers. So let us try to, go against this rule. Let us try to do, change this rule. What did I say? According to this rule, it can contain only number, letter, underscore, and number. Say, for example, I'm giving a special character, underscore user is equal to 10. So when I run this set of code, it'll say that, it's an invalid syntax error. Why? Because I know that my variable can only contain letter, underscore, and numbers. It cannot contain other thing. It cannot have, an underscore. If you try to give underscore or something else, it'll throw an error saying, invalid syntax. So this is the first rule that you must follow when you're working with variables. What is the second rule? Second rule says that my variable can only start with a letter or an underscore So what do I mean? See, as I know that my variable can contain letter, underscore, and numbers, right? But when I'm going to, variable, it can only start with a letter and underscore. So let us try to do, so what do I mean by this? See, letter and underscore, basically it can start with underscore. So it cannot start with a number, right? Which means that it cannot start with a number, right? Let me, declare a variable that starts with a number. So let me say one num is equal to 100. So when I try to run this, it will show that, what, it is an invalid syntax. Your variable should only start with a letter or an underscore. So let me give it a letter. I know that with a letter it will work, right? So if I say message is equal to 100, it would work. It will not throw an error. Similarly, when I'm working with underscores, I can say underscore message is equal to 200. When I run this, it will not show, it will not throw an error basically, right? Just remember, whenever you're working with variables or whenever you're assigning a variable, try to follow these rules. The first rule says that your variable can contain only three things. What are those three things? Letters, underscores, and number. So only these three things it can contain. And the second rule says that when you're assigning a variable, start with only letter and underscore. You cannot start your variable name with a number. If you try to do that, it will throw an error, syntax error, which means that you're not following the rules. So always try to follow these rules. Again, you might be thinking, how did we get this? How did we basically get these rules? These are predefined rules, okay? These are inbuilt. So variables, the people who have basically coded, all these variables, right? They have, basically written these codes. So basically they have written these rules, I can say. So we have to always work with these rules. So variables can only come letter, underscore, numbers, and variable can only start with a letter or underscore. It cannot start with a number. Yeah. Then can I have the third rule? Okay. Again, this is not a rule, but you can say it's like a suggestion. What is it? The suggestion is nothing but you cannot a variable. You can say that variable name should be descriptive. What do I mean by this? Descriptive or without being too long, or without being too long. Okay. Again, this is not a rule, but again, it's just a suggestion which you guys should better, follow when you're working with variables. What do I mean by this? Say, for example, let me take an example that you're counting a number of ice creams. Okay. So you're going to count the number of ice creams in a program. So rather than saying C is equal to 1 or C is equal to 10, what can I do? I can give an better name, right? C is equal to 10. Rather than saying C is equal to 10, I can just give a better naming convention, right? Which is nothing but count is equal to 10. So if a programmer, right? If he comes into, if you're, passing on your programmer to some other developer, or, if your tutor or if somebody is seeing your program, don't you think this would be better rather than just saying C is equal to 10? This makes a quite sense, right? When you're saying count is equal to 10, right? Because here you're saying count. Again, the person who's reading your program would understand count is nothing but the count of a particular variable. So it's always better to, it's always better that your variable should be descriptive and it should not be too long. It's better not to have, too long variable names, like, a number of ice cream counts. You cannot have such a huge variable. Again, it'll take, it'll not throw an error. Say, for example, you can have a variable like, number number of is equal to 10. You can have this. It'll run. It'll not throw an error. But again, rather than just such a huge name, you can just give a short name, right? A short and a descriptive name. Okay. And there's one more thing, guys, have to, which, I have to remind you guys, when you're naming a variable name, when you're giving a variable name, right? And say, for example, you want to use more than two sentence up to, say, yeah, more than two values or something, right? Say, for example, your number of ice creams. So more than strings you're trying to give, more than one string you're trying to give. So whenever you're giving it like this, don't give spaces. So once if you give spaces, what will happen? It'll throw a syntax error. Why? Because according to our naming rule, variables can only contain letter, underscore, and numbers. Letters, underscores, and numbers. What I can see that I'm even trying to give space. So it'll not work basically. So how can I avoid this? I can just avoid this by giving underscores in between these particular strings. So when I run this set of code, see, I can see that there is no error. So this is my variable and the value assigned to this variable is nothing but 10. Okay. So this is, I'm done with the demo. This is only the topic which I wanted to talk to you guys about, in demo. So I hope all of you have understood. Do you have any doubts? Any one of you? Like you can just unmute yourself, or you can just put it in a chat box. Do you guys have any doubts? Okay, you can just put it in a chat box saying yes or no.
Hi Poonam, this is Anil. Is there any
Yes,
option?
yes.
Is there any option in Python? How can we comment multiple lines at a time?
Sorry, your voice is not audible. Could you be more clear?
So in Python, is there any option to comment
Uh-huh.
multiple lines?
To
Use
comment, okay,
yeah.
multiple lines, basically, you mean? Yeah, it's very simple. Say, for example, you want to say, for example, I want a set of lines. Say, for example, I have this, 1 minute. Yeah, say, for example, I have these variables. Okay, I have these set of lines, these set of lines, and I want all of these to be comment. Basically, all of these should be comment in comment line. What I can do is, rather than using always hash symbol, because again hash symbol would work only for one particular line. Rather than doing this, what I can do is, I can change my this whole cell into a markdown. So when I change this into a markdown, this would be treated as an basically this would be treated as in comment box. So whatever you write inside this would never be treated as in program. So that's how you can see when you run this set of line also. See, this will act like in comment line. And say, for example, when I'm working with this particular line, and I want spaces between these lines. Okay, I want my output to be in a separate lines. Basically, I want all of my outputs to be in separate lines. So what I can do is just say escape markdown, and this is how I get. Basically, this whole cell would act as in comment. Basically, it'll act as in notes. Basically, comments. Why are we giving comments? Comments are used for describing our functions, right? So what you can do, you can take one single cell, and there you can write all these variables into an single cell. So what this variables would act, all these values or whatever your notes you're trying to give here would act as in comment. Without, you don't have to even give comment lines here. This would act as in notes for you, separate notes. Yeah. Is your doubt clear? And again, there's one more thing which I want to tell you guys.
So this process will work on only this notebook, right? Like whatever you writing the program.
Yes, 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 yes. This
If
would
I write,
work only here.
if I,
Yeah, actually, your voice is not that audible. Be little loud. Yeah, could you be little loud because your voice is not audible. It's like so I'm not able to hear it. Okay. Could you just put it in the chat box so that I can just read it out and I can help you with the query? Okay. Okay, what about others? Do you have any doubts and you want to ask anything about Python programming language, about the code which we've discussed, about topic which we have discussed? If you guys have any query, you could just let me know now so that I can clarify. Okay. So it seems like did all of you understand like what I spoke about today? Okay, if it's okay, guys, then this was the demo session, and these are the topics which I wanted to talk about in the demo session. It was nice discussing with you guys all these topics. So see you guys. Like we can, if you guys are it's up to you guys. You have decided, we can just work on with the further topics. Okay, and the doubts, I don't know, I'm not able to hear one person who's asking me the doubt. The voice is not audible. So if you could just your query in chat box, I could just help you with it. Okay. Okay, guys. So I'll end this session. So it's a good class. See you guys. So other than this, you guys have no queries, right? Like, career path, your learning thing. It's clear, right? I've told you already about these things. So it's clear and it's fine, right? If it is, then I can just wind up this, demo class and we can.
Hi, Poonam.
Uh, yes, Akhil. Yes, tell me.
Bill, uh, I have a doubt. I don't have any knowledge in languages, and this is the first class where I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting with a language. Uh, like,
Uh-huh.
is it important I should know C language, C++, Java, and all, or else it's okay to go with
No, 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 not at all.
okay,
It's not necessary.
I'm
Yeah.
uh, okay. I'm into
Uh,
different domain
yeah.
as of now, and
Uh-huh.
this is the first class I'm attending with Python, and your class is okay, and I could understand what your lecture and what you are
Mm-hmm.
describing about. But it is no need of knowing the
Mm-hmm.
languages like C++ and all.
No, 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 Akhil. See, again, whatever topics we are going to discuss here, it would be from scratch. It will be from a scratch. That's why I'm telling you about variables and stuffs. It's going to be
Mm,
basically from scratch, so you don't have to worry anything about that. You have to know other programming languages. Not at all. People who are from non-technical background, even they start learning Python, programming languages. So it's not necessary that you have to know some other language, and only then you'll be able to understand this.
all right, Poonam. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks
here
for
will be, yeah, Akhil. Here, don't worry. Here we start from scratch. Basically, from learning what a alphabet, what a variable is, how do you perform, how do you add two numbers. You're going to start from there. So you
all
don't
right.
have to have any knowledge about other programming language.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Akhil. Yeah, thank you. Uh, Others, do you have any doubts? If no, I can just wind this session.
Poonam, it's Sindhu here. Yeah, actually, your
Yes,
session
Sindhu.
was very good and very understandable. I'm also very new to
Uh-huh.
this technical language, and I have a small
Uh-huh.
doubt here. Do we need
Yeah.
to do any certification on this?
Sorry?
Do we need to do any certification on this? Actually, I have
No, no,
heard
no.
for some. While attending the interviews, they'll ask for an certificate regarding this Python or all the languages. So that's why I'm
Uh-huh.
asking you.
Yes, Sindhu. Sindhu, one thing which I want to really talk to you about this, about this topic is, remember, guys, your certifications is not something which matters. When you're going into an interview, right? There's first of all, they'll check your knowledge, how you're working on. They'll first of all, go into that certification part. But again, just for a namesake, you can have a certification, but if your knowledge is really good in something, it doesn't matter that you've done a certification, because people these days, there are so many ways, people learn. Some people learn by themselves, so it is not necessary like you have to go with certification. Basically, your knowledge in a particular programming language should be strong enough. So if you're able to, handle, if you're going to an interview, your first round would be basically aptitude round, and the second round would be programming round. So in the programming round, if you're able to, clear all your, programs, if you're doing it in a very smarter way, and if you're, basically, you're getting an output for the certain programs, whichever they tell you to work on. So they'll never go and, depth into your certifications and all these things. So knowledge is what matters again. So you don't have to worry much about that. Like, certification is necessary or not necessary. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, sure. And again, people, you don't have to worry, guys. Don't, if you're new into this, don't have to worry. You're going to learn from scratch. You don't have to, it's not necessary for you to know other programming languages, because there's no connection at all. program C, Java, there are some different programming languages. This is something different. So it's not necessary. When you know Java, it's not necessary that Java and C are same. It's not like that. Languages, each programming language is something different, and it's like you're going to learn something different in each programming language. So there's no link between Java, C, and Python. There's no link at all. Cool. So what about others? Do you have any other doubts? Okay. Okay. So any no other doubts, right? Like if you have guys any career opportunities, like whatever how this Python benefit us, anything like that, you can just let me know and we could discuss about it. Okay, so I don't think so anybody has any doubt. Okay guys, so we can I can see you guys tomorrow and we can just carry out with the sessions again. You guys don't have to worry, we'll be doing it from scratch and we'll be learning everything in depth about programming language. And with this I'll even every day I will we'll even discuss about interview questions, because I know that interview is something which is really important, right? So you guys have to get practicing. You guys have to start practicing interview questions from day one. So each time we finish a certain topic, I'll be giving you some set of interview questions or a set of assignments. You guys can work with it, and that's how you can uh, gain a proper knowledge, because just listening to class won't really help you. So we'll start doing that. Okay. Okay, cool, guys. So I guess there's no doubts. If you have any doubts, you can, get in touch with me. So for now, you don't have any doubts. So I'll wind up this demo session, and I see you guys very soon. Okay, bye, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you everyone.